I get there. I have to become a member, and so I, had to have my picture taken. I think I've still got their card in my wallet. But you get your picture taken. You become a member of Hugh, the library, as it were. I haven't got it in my card, but you get in, and then you go from one desk to another, and then you go to the other desk and you say to the person, I'm here to see these records, and they say, yep. Go to locker number 33, and in there you'll find the documents, and then go to desk number 33. And it's a big place, it's like a massive library, size of a kind of IKEA store, big. And I go to locker 33, open it, and there's one piece of paper in there, and it's got red writing on it. And I just think, that's typical, isn't it? All this waste to get here, and I can't see them. And so I take the piece of paper. I didn't even read it properly. I take the paper back to the person, and they say, all right, you can see them, but you have to see them in a separate room. These can't be in a public place so that someone can walk behind you and look over your shoulder. And I'm even more intrigued. And they say, go and see that person over there, and they'll get them for you and seat you and bring them to you. And so all of that happens, and I end up with this big pile of documents in front of me. During the process of getting in, you've got to put all your stuff in a locker. And I say to the person who's advising me, the member of staff, what can I take in? Because I come a long way. Well, not a long way, but it felt like a long way. And I want to be able to sort of, can I take photos of these things? Can I write some notes? What can I do? And they said, oh yeah, you can take photos. You take your laptop, you can take your phone. You can't take a pen or a pencil and a rubber, and you can't take any other documents. So I go in with my phone and my laptop, and I didn't have a charger, but my laptop was fully charged and my phone was fully charged. And I go in, and there's so many documents. I think I can't read all. I start reading them, and then I think I'm going to be here forever. And so I start taking photos of them, and I take something like between 160 and 170 photographs of documents, trying to get it right. And I'm thinking, I hope I don't run out of space on my phone. I hope I don't run out of charge. Although I did have a lead, I could have drained my laptop battery into my phone to keep it going. But I've go through it once, and I take all the photos that I can. There's some that I discard, but I take a picture of everything. What I realise is my mum's records contain my dad's records because they're relevant to both. And I guess my dad's records would contain my mum's as well, but I'm not allowed to look at them. So there may be stuff in my dad's records that has been kept out. But in this one, there's pictures of, the dead guy. There's pictures of the shots that were fired at him. There's pictures of our house. So there's a map of our house, like a technical drawing of our house. And so I take all these photos, and then I go through it again, and I start reading selected documents. And I'm reading the police interview. I've looked at the dead guy, and I think, okay, that's pretty horrific. So maybe that's why they thought it would cause harm. I look at the technical drawing of our house, and I think, well, that was my bedroom at the time. Our house we lived downstairs and we had tenants upstairs. And yeah, there's all this information. And what I find, this is weird. This is not disrespecting the person who died, but I look at the pictures that contain the pictures of the body, and I'm less interested in the body because I'm looking at the house. I'm looking at the background of the house. And I remember, our house was pretty dilapidated. It was pretty bad condition. And I'm looking at it as an adult thinking, wow, our house could really have done with some renovations. And it just, suddenly I'm brought back to being a kid in that house. Anyway, I start to read the police interviews, and I realised my mum needed an interpreter. So she's being asked questions. She's being asked direct questions. Were you having an affair with this guy? No. Did you ring him and get him to come to the house so that your husband could kill him? No. You know, she's really clear. And suddenly, as I'm reading through the interaction between her and the police officers interviewing her, I rediscover my mum's voice. And suddenly she's not like some victim person, you know, in the background, and my dad being this monster. She's sticking up for herself, and she's sticking up for what she believes is the truth. And then partway through the interview, I think one of the documents says interview ceased because the little boy needed to go to the toilet or something. I think we were in a separate room, but we were in the police station, and I needed to go to the loo, and so they had to stop the interview for a bit. And that suddenly, that just hit home. You know, it was just a little detail, and it stopped me in my tracks, because suddenly I was little again, and I was in the story. I'd gone from hearing my mum's voice as an adult, reading my mum's voice, to suddenly being in the story, and that stopped me in my tracks. But I read on, and she gave a good account of herself, and the police still charged them both with murder, and she just spoke what she'd experienced. She just told them the truth as she saw it. She answered all the questions, and then later on, my dad's interview, I read that, and yeah, there was an element of, I could hear my dad again, but he wasn't as strong as I remembered him. You know, my dad was, even though he's only 5'2" or something, he was a towering figure in my life. He was the authoritarian. He'd been to prison and all the rest of it. And yeah, all of a sudden I could hear his voice. And I remember looking at their ages and thinking, you know, she was 26. I thought, I got out of rehab when I was 26, you know, 25, 26. And I've grown up a lot since then. So she was a mum of 3 children, under 10, you know, so I think if I was 3, my oldest sister would have been 9, maybe 10. So she was a mum of 3, and they'd been in that house 11 weeks, and they'd worked really hard to get to that point. So I suddenly also get a really clear backstory for my parents, which again wasn't absolutely clear when I was younger or when I was growing up.